Have you ever had a dream that someone creeps into your room at night while you're trying to sleep? Well, don't worry. It's just America's most repulsive podcast, The Pod People. I'm Mr. Hands, Matisse Van Rossum.
I'm the crack rabbit, Ben Sheets.
I'm just that old lady watching from down the hall, Cleveland Mosier.
Who said you could watch?
No one, but I'm doing it anyway.
Well, we're back for another fun-filled episode. This week we're going to be talking about Ben's pick, and Ben has picked a special film for us this week. We're going to be talking about the 1965 film Repulsion, written and directed by Roman Polanski. Yes, that Roman Polanski.
Oh, dear.
We'll get to that in a minute. It's starring Catherine Deneuve, Ian Hendry, John Fraser, and Yvonne Furneaux. Ben, why'd you pick this one? Tell us about Repulsion.
Repulsion is one of my all-time favorite horror movies. I find it incredibly unsettling and disturbing, and it's an incredible artifact of its time because I feel like it's much scarier than any other horror movie that came out in that generation. And on top of that, it's an exploration of horror without monsters or creatures. It's horror of insanity.
It's horror of the mind.
Yeah, of madness. And I find that approach fascinating. I think Catherine Deneuve gives an incredible performance in this movie.
Masterclass, even.
Yeah, I just want to talk about it because I really adore this film, and I think there's a lot to be discussed.
Well, Cleveland, once again, your baby on this one.
Correct.
This is a first-time viewing for you. What were some of your thoughts, your first impressions of Repulsion?
I was repulsed. It was gross, nasty, scary, unsettling. I hated it.
It is
Great movie. I hated it.
It's very much a bad vibe
It
movie.
sucks. It sucks, and it's amazing.
And the funny thing,
Jesus.
too, is that all of the words you just used to describe it also describe the man who made it.
Yeah. Can we just get that out of the way?
Yeah, I think we should.
Let's get that conversation out of the way.
I mean, I don't know how much of a conversation it needs to be. Obviously, fuck Roman Polanski.
Yeah.
But he has made some important films. And,
At a certain point, you gotta separate the art from the artist. I mean,
Suppose.
I listen to black metal. We all listen to black metal.
I have no problem separating the art from the artist. I will say, on this watch of Repulsion, it did give me some kind of weird vibes, just like thinking about Roman Polanski and like the content of this movie.
Yeah.
In some ways, it makes it more unsettling.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, in a way that kind of like comes outside of the framework of the movie in a way I did not like at all. At all. So I had one quick question. I'm going to figure out how many other Roman Polanski films I've seen. Did he make the original Chinatown or the one with Jack Nicholson in it?
That is the original Chinatown.
Is there not another one?
No.
I thought there
He
was
did. He
another
made the one and only Chinatown.
Yeah,
with Jack
okay.
He
Nicholson,
made
yes.
Chinatown, Rosemary's Baby, The Ninth Gate, plenty of other movies.
The
Carnage,
Pianist.
The Pianist.
You mentioned Rosemary's Baby. Repulsion is the first in what is called Polanski's Apartment trilogy, sort of an unofficial trilogy. They're not like continuous narrative or anything, much like John Carpenter's Apocalypse trilogy.
So the Polanski verse.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he made a series of 3 horror films that are basically all just about somebody going insane in an apartment. And Repulsion was the first, then Rosemary's Baby, and then The Tenant, which Polanski himself stars in, and I think is actually a pretty damn good movie. Weird bad vibes aside.
Yeah, well, this movie's interesting, too, because it's Polanski's English language debut. It's his second film after Knife in the Water, I think. But it's his first English language film, and it's very British in its approach a lot of times.
Wait, it is set in England.
Yeah,
It is,
yeah.
yes.
In London. The East End, I think. It's like the East End, isn't it? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think so. I think it's in like Soho, which I think is why Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho is like inspired by Repulsion, which is coming out in October, I think.
September
September,
or October, yeah.
We will be talking about that film later in the year. It is very British.
In it,
Yeah, it sure is. It is in sort of the Italian style of like everything is Foleyed and ADR'd, sometimes more noticeable than others.
this movie gave me a lot of Italian vibes. Like
Yeah.
in the cinematography.
It honestly, it gives me a lot of like French New Wave vibes, a lot of like handheld camera, a lot of like cinema verite kind of like perspective, jazzy score.
Yeah, well, it's interesting.
black and white.
You mentioned French New Wave because, like, it very much has kind of a documentary-esque verite type of style, where like the black and white was partially used because newsreels used black and white back in the day, and it was trying to add to the realism of the feeling of the movie, which is interesting because the movie is very subjective through Carol's eyes, right?
Yeah.
So we do get flashes and dream sequences where they are very surreal, but you have that grounded element where like the camera is handheld and you feel very much in the space.
Yeah, and she's like out. It's always like when she's like out and about, walking on the street and stuff, and and like the camera is just kind of zooming along behind her and like moving around her. And there's like a very upbeat, jazzy kind of score. Cleveland, you made a Birdman joke while we were watching it.
Yeah.
It does give those same kind of vibes. I like the perspective too. As you were saying, like it's entirely from Carol's perspective, and it does a really good job of setting that precedent right off the bat, because like the opening credits are just like an extreme close-up of her eye.
Much like the ending of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably my favorite close-up eye shot in any horror movie.
It's the scariest.
Yeah. But
But there's definitely
Well,
a
and
lineage
Chandelou
of inspiration there.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Well,
Chandelou has the eye as
yeah.
well. And
Well-
that's pretty heavy.
yeah, because
the-
they actually cut open like a cow's or a pig's eye with a razor blade.
The
Yeah.
credits move across the eye almost
Yeah.
in
That was cool.
razor sort of
That was a cool
fashion.
effect.
I find that opening very intense and a great way to set the tone of the film.
Oh yeah, I
Because
mean,
it is very mundane, but it sets you off kilter. You're not used to being that close to someone for that long.
Right. And also because, like, she's at her job, and when we, like, pull back from that shot, she's, like, zoning out while painting, like, a lady's fingernails. So it's, like, the whole time that the credits are going, like, we can assume that she's just been sitting there staring listlessly off into space, like, while she's supposed to be doing her job.
Just-
Like, it sets the tone very well. It's like, there's immediately something a little bit off about this character.
nah, she's just vibing.
She's just vibing.
She's just vibing.
I mean, at a job like that, I would fucking zone out too. That's a fucking bleak existence.
Yeah, good to just vibe.
That kind of service work, yeah. Just yeah, you know, this is a movie where Carol, she's just vibing for the whole movie.
the whole movie.
The whole
There's
movie,
a lot of
she's just vibing.
just vibing.
A lot of the vibes are bad vibing,
bad vibing.
but she's just vibing.
just vibing.
She's just being her not best self. I was going to say best self, but that is not.
She's just
quite
vibing,
true.
living her worst life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that term, the way it gets used now in memes and media, very poignant, because like it's often a reflex to like just being bombarded with like heavy, terrible shit all the time, and just like needing
like,
to
yeah, I'm just vibing.
just to completely shut your brain off, and just be vibing, watching some 14-second cartoon of a frog hopping on a lily pad on repeat for like 20 minutes, just vibing, just trying to escape from the bombardment of everything. Like it's very relatable. Very relatable in the modern age. I'm about it. And
Also just like the sense of paranoia in this film, that like the world is closing in on you and that like literally everyone is out to get you is relatable in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, and
The movie's kind of ahead of its time in that way.
With Carol, walking through the street and everyone is just leering at her, and men seem very predatory in this film.
That's one of the things that is so wild to me about this film is if you had not told me who made this film, which you could have done, you could have just sat me down in front of it, and I would be like, I don't know who's Roman Polanski, let's just watch the movie, and I would have seen it. I would have come out of it, like, honest to God, being like, wow, this movie's progressive as fuck. Like, this movie emphasizes a lot of the good things about the Me Too movement. Like, it shows, like, a lot of, like, positive, like, progressive things, because it gives you, like, her perspective in, like, a very honest way, especially for the time. Especially, like,
and I think
for when this movie was made. Unfortunately,
I think it could still be read that way.
Yes, absolutely.
In a purely objective view, but there absolutely is this whole aspect of, it does such a good job of depicting like predatory behavior because it was made by a predator.
Yeah.
Like
much like the actor he did the House of Cards and Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey.
Much like Kevin Spacey.
Friend of the pod, Kevin Spacey.
No, not a friend of the pod. You are not allowed on the podcast.
Big enemy of the pod.
Kevin, if you want to be on the pod, slide into our DM.
No, don't slide anywhere. You're not allowed to do that anymore. No, big no. Get out of here. Yeah, in a similar way, it turns out they were great at depicting the skis ball because they were, and by skis ball I mean monster. How about it?
Yeah. I mean, granted, this film was well before Polanski's weird pedo shit, but it does not excuse it.
Well, before the accusations.
Yeah. Who knows what he was fucking doing in those days.
I'm not putting anything past anyone.
Nope, this is not a Roman Polanski apologist podcast.
Yeah, this is not a Roman Polanski apology. There's something there.
There's something there. We won't get
Figure
into
it out.
but it's there.
Well, one of the things I do really like about this film is
Polanski apology. There it is. There we go.
Sure.
It's not a Roman Polanski apology. It's not that. All right, sorry, as you were saying, Ben. My bad.
I'm a Polanski apologist.
No.
I don't eat fish.
Oh, wait.
A pescalance.
Oh, careful.
Where are we going?
Yeah.
Okay,
Get out of here.
Let's right this ship.
anyways,
If it's even possible.
one of the things I love in this film is how subtle it starts. It starts almost mundane in like
I would
how-
definitely say slow, yeah.
Yeah. It sets the world in a very normal seeming kind of sense. And I think that's done very intentionally so that when, there's the turn when Carol is in her isolation, it's all the more dramatic.
It takes a little while to get rolling. I had forgotten how like slowly this movie starts. I think that, gosh, like the first horror stuff is probably like 40 minutes into the movie almost, really. It does some things to establish an unsettling tone before that. But yeah, a lot of it is very mundane, like Carol just going about her life. We get introduced to her sister, who she lives with, her sister's sleazy boyfriend, the sleazy guy who is obsessed with her.
A lot of sleaze.
A lot of sleaze. Yeah. Lady down the hall who's always just watching.
You get hints that something might be awry, in how childish her conversations with the suitor is.
Yeah.
And, her conversations with her sister. But you don't really sense that something is quite up.
No, like she's definitely off. She's like she's very kind of cold in her interactions with people. Like she's very introverted, enclosed within her shell. But you don't really see until much later like how deep that psychic scarring is. One thing I think is interesting is like I always wonder when I watch this movie like what made Carol this way, because there's never anything that explains that.
Well,
not saying that I need it.
I have thoughts on that. I think it's really cool that the movie doesn't say it, but I'd have to spoil the end.
We can save that then.
Then let's yeah. But I do have some points on that. I have some things that were theories while I was watching it, and they were not entirely ruled out. but it does involve the last shot of the movie. So I will. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'll hold off on that as well. Yeah, well, I think they do a really good job kind of escalating that insanity. You know, once Carol's sister and the boyfriend leave to go to Rome, she's left alone with no one else. And that really takes a toll on her. Very visibly.
There's obviously a part of her that wants isolation because she doesn't want to be around anybody, but at the same time, like, her isolation, like, makes her go even crazier. Like, she doesn't want any of these people near her. She is repulsed by them. But at the same time, like, when she is in isolation, she constantly feels like that isolation is under threat. Like, somebody is trying to get in, somebody's trying to get at her, the walls are trying to grab her, hands come out of the walls, you know?
I love how throughout that section of the movie, every time she is in her bedroom and looks up at the ceiling, it's closer and closer in.
Yes!
The walls are really coming in on her. And
The adjustment of the set to, like, play with space in this movie is awesome. How, like, the rooms and the apartment are, like, constantly changing size. At one point later, after, it's kind of a spoiler, but whatever, after she's killed the landlord and she goes back into the living room and the living room is just huge. I love that. And like you said, how she's in bed and the ceiling, like, gets closer, and, like, when she goes going down the hall towards the bathroom and the walls, like, get closer, and then, like, hands come out and grab her.
Well, yeah, exactly. And you were mentioning earlier how she kind of longs for that isolation, and I think part of it is, like, we see her when the sister and the boyfriend are there, and she can hear them fucking through the walls, and
Yeah,
you know,
through the fucking
obviously she's disturbed by it, you know, especially with the male presence of it, because she is particularly repulsed by men and, you know, male advances.
Which is sad too, because she spends a portion of her time, you know, at her work, or a good portion of her time in her life, not necessarily in the film, but we get the vibe, like a majority of her time is spent at the nail salon, you know, where she is protected by women.
Yeah.
Like, she's overseen by women. Her job involves, like, helping women. And they seem to have all, like, sort of developed a network around her, just a safety net, as it were.
I think the only time she smiles at all in this movie is the scene where she's talking with her coworker. Her coworker's telling her about the hilarious Charlie Chaplin movie she went to see.
Yeah, and I find that scene very revealing, because it's like, yes, cinema has a distance, so it's not like she doesn't feel the reality of men, and, you know, she's conversating and laughing with, her female coworker.
It's probably the
You know,
only
so-
time in the movie where it actually seems like she's comfortable.
Yeah, and then it turns on a dime when the coworker mentions her boyfriend.
Yeah.
That's just, you know, another example of, like, how intensely, you know, scared and fearful and paranoid she is of men.
Yeah, it doesn't help that Colin is, like, constantly hounding her, and, like, I think
And his buddies are hounding him to hound her.
Yeah.
This is a fucked up system.
Well, what I love about the buddies kind of hounding him is you could still read that as subjective through Carol's eyes, you know, just envisioning what he's going back to and doing when she's not around.
Yeah, she's imagining him at the pub with his mates, you know, doing
read.
the locker room talk. Yeah, man, all of the characters in this movie are so unlikable. There's not a single nice person to glom onto. Like, I think even Carol is kind of distant from the audience too, because she's just, like, so inward facing that, like, it's even hard to relate with her to a certain degree, which I think is intentional, and I don't mind it.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and I think what makes it so powerful is you empathize with her, even if you don't necessarily like her.
Yeah.
She is an empathetic character, and a lot of the not to spoil too much, but a lot of the kills in this movie come from men making absurd advances.
Oh
towards
yeah,
her.
absolutely. I think that both the people that she kills in this movie are absolutely deserving of it.
Yep.
I mean, the landlord just straight up tries to rape her, but even Colin, like, he comes to her door and knocks on the door and knows that she's in there, and she doesn't answer, so he breaks the door down.
Yeah.
And then once he's in, it's like he doesn't like force himself on her or anything. But
He might as
like,
well. He's already broken her door down.
yeah,
now.
he's fucking broken her door, and he's like, well, I'm sorry, I just had to see you, and you weren't answering, and so I needed to get in, and it's like he's not being physically aggressive, but like Jesus Christ, dude.
But he is though.
But like Jesus Christ, you just fucking kicked down her door because she wouldn't unlock it when you knocked on it.
And he like
Psycho behavior.
goes out to the lady in the hallway to make sure she's going inside and not watching what happens.
Right. He's a fucking piece of shit.
Yep.
And she clubs him to death with a candlestick in the hallway. I love her ineptitude at covering up her crimes.
She has such a gleeful look on her face while she's bashing his head in with the candlestick.
It's cathartic.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, well, that's what you do, I guess. Like, dude just broke into your apartment.
Yeah, thank God I don't have to deal with this fucker anymore.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people, a lot of women in particular, who wish that they could just club some man to death.
And men, yeah. Yeah, there's universality to that feeling, you know.
For sure.
For sure, yeah. There's definitely something to that. Just being hounded after, you know, so much that it gets tiresome, exhausting. And when you're already like not in a productive or healthy mental state to begin with, like, good luck. You know, like, what a nightmare. To be so vulnerable and, you know, for everyone around you to be taking advantage of you is really unfortunate. And it might make her one of the most relatable and sympathetic killers I've ever seen. Possibly ever. I off the top of my head, I can't think of one.
Both times...
Maybe Thanos, you know, for sympathetic villains, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close to Thanos. Oh God, I was vomited saying.
Both times she kills, it's strictly in self-defense. So in that regard, it's like you feel bad for her. But like I said, she does a really fucking bad job of covering up her murders.
Yeah. Which makes it great, because like so often the crazy killer is very capable.
Yeah.
In these sorts of movies, like the crazy camp killer, you know, is like is also a ninja, you know, like is also like capable of like incredible stealth behavior,
master engineer.
Yeah, exactly, designing incredible traps, etc., etc.
Well,
like,
you know, I think
and survivalist, all these things.
Even in crimes of passion, like even if you're not, you know, a survivalist or whatever, like I think there's still always an urgency to like cover up the crime because you don't want to be caught, you don't want to go to jail. Like, holy shit, I just snapped and killed somebody. I gotta clean everything up. I gotta hide the body. Not Carol, though. After she kills Colin, she just drags him down the hall and puts him in the bathtub full of water and just leaves him there. And doesn't try to fix the broken door. She just takes a 2x4 and nails it across the bottom of the door. And later, when she kills the landlord, he's on the couch. She just flips the couch over, so it's on top of him, and his feet are sticking out.
He's hidden.
Not really. She just doesn't have to look at him anymore. And I think that's really what it is. She's not concerned with covering up the evidence of her crime. She just doesn't want to look at what she's done.
Doesn't want to look at the men.
Yeah, doesn't want to look at the men and doesn't want to look at the violence that she has done in response to violence in turn. And, you know, that just makes her go even crazier because at a certain point she's just got multiple dead bodies just moldering in her apartment.
It's good to do a molder.
It is good to do a molder. And that stuff is
not
kind
like X-Files, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, not to molder, not Mulder.
Yeah.
I think that stuff is kind of foreshadowed too by the rabbit carcass.
Oh yeah, let's talk about the rabbit. The rabbit is such a great set piece.
Fundamental.
Yeah.
Yeah, very very representative of a lot of things, but her sort of decaying mental state. But her, at the beginning, she rejects Colin's advance. She says, no, I'm having dinner with my sister. She's cooking rabbit. And, you know, she goes back to their apartment, and her sister starts preparing the rabbit, and then her boyfriend comes in and says, I'm taking you out to dinner. You can cook the rabbit later. And so, once again, a man invades what is supposed to be like a safe space for Carol and takes her sister away from her, another some semi-comforting female presence. And then her sister and the boyfriend go off on holiday to Italy.
But we're getting a little ahead, though, because not only does she take the sister, he also takes the food, because the sister was going to support her and cook the food.
Was going to make dinner for her,
Yeah, being the rabbit. So, like, she's now left with, like, no food other than, like, a loaf of bread and, like, some beans or whatever in the house. And, like, she can't cook. Like, I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Like, she's not really up for that. So what the hell is she going to do? It's a sad shame. And then, on the way out, they stop at the elevator. And I love this sequence because at the time, I was less privy to just how gone she was, right? So I was viewing this through a very different lens. When he suggests to the sister, hey, have you thought about having her see a doctor, right? At this point, she hasn't done enough from our perspective. We haven't seen her do enough to really justify that. She's just been vibing at this point in the movie. It's fairly early on. She's been vibing, and we know that she's maybe not interested in this guy, you know? But also, like, from the framing of the movie, like, a lot of other films of the era, they show timid girls like that as playing hard to get, which is fucked up, but that's the reality of the era. Like when you're looking at, like, these films, I was kind of under the impression they were doing that. So I wasn't totally there on that front. So when he said that, I had a gut reaction, being like, no, like what? Going to send her off to a doctor. But then I thought about it some more. And considering how scandalous therapy was at the time, he was absolutely doing the right thing there. I mean, of course, like with full context, like knowing like how out of sorts she is. Like,
yeah, she absolutely
she 1000% needs to see a doctor. But like without that perspective, it feels invasive.
Yeah,
you know, that was a cool paradigm shift.
Also, it just feels like he's trying to get rid of her too.
Yeah,
you know, because
which might also
she's living with the sister, and they're obviously like she and him are obviously having sort of like a territorial struggle. He keeps putting his like his razor and his comb and his toothbrush like in her glass in the bathroom. And, you know, just like an invasion of privacy. And she keeps taking it out and putting it on the shelf, and he keeps putting it back, and eventually she just throws it away. And then her sister's like, why did you throw his stuff away? He's pissed about that. It's like, because he keeps fucking putting it in my glass and I keep moving it. Like, goddamn, at a certain point, take the fucking hint, right? So when he says, you know, maybe she should see a doctor, it really feels like he's trying to, like, get rid of her. So he can have the sister all to himself.
Which is particularly screwy because he's married.
He's having an affair, yeah.
He's married.
Which is wild that he's able to go off on, like, a week-long vacation with his mistress and his wife doesn't. Well, I guess his wife does know because she calls up later.
She finds out down the road. But wild, yes. Believable, very.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, the wife does call the home phone
and yells at Carol because she thinks she is the adulterer.
And Carol is obviously so upset and disturbed by that she cuts the phone line and rips the phone out
with his razor, with his straight razor, which she then later uses to kill the landlord. Death by 1,000 cuts. Just kind of scratches him with it until he dies.
Yeah. I want to go back to the rabbit really quick because I think it's such a great prop. I think it's really great in how it shows the progression of time as it rots away and becomes more and more disgusting, and flies are flying around it. And I
mean, it is her. It is the representation of her. She is a scared little rabbit that is just decaying. Her mental faculties.
But it also very much looks like a fetus,
Yes.
you know? And I've mentioned this in our conversation before, but like, you know, the rabbit in this movie walked so the Eraserhead baby could run. Like,
Yeah.
there's a clear lineage from
Definitely.
one to the other.
I love that so much. I just love that. Like, just to say it again, right? Like the rabbit this movie walks so the Eraserhead baby can run is great. Like it's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. Yeah, no, I love that. I do.
Well, at one point she cuts its head off and is carrying it around in her purse. Like that's how the scene with
for
her,
luck.
with that. Yeah, exactly. It's a rabbit's head is way luckier than its feet.
It's true. Way more rabbit.
Way more rabbit. But that's how the scene where she's like talking and laughing with her coworker ends. As her coworker looks in her purse and there's just a skinned rabbit head.
Yeah, and like at that point it's already like fairly desiccated, so it's
Yeah.
just like a weird piece of meat with hair on it.
And you could see the
Bits of-
teeth. You could see its teeth.
Ugh, yeah.
Chompy rabbit teeth. It's kind of, it's sad too, because it's like we get that little scene that's like we see a brief little bit of happiness from Carol, and then look in her purse and she's carrying around a fucking rabbit.
Jolts you back
Yeah,
into
it's
reality.
like, oh shit.
Yeah, horrifying and very pitiable too. Like
Yeah.
it's rough. And I think the biggest bummer of all is that the friend is just too fucking polite and British to like do anything about it either. You know, like she's just like mortified by it, but
Yeah, man.
says nothing, does nothing, and she wouldn't. That's the harsh reality of it too.
I mean, really,
like it's very believable in that sense.
Who would, you know?
You're right. Who would want to say anything?
What are you gonna say? It's one thing if it's like your family or like a really close friend,
Well, even
but like
still, even family, because like that's how she gets in the scenario to begin with, right? Like she's a problem that no one wants to solve.
Yeah.
Like no one's gonna solve it for her. Like people want her to just like support herself. Her sister clearly does. She's tired of supporting her as well, and so she enters a level of denial, you know, about her sister's state, because like clearly her sister's been like this for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. And like clearly she's just been so exhausted by it that she just sort of like, you know, gives up for a weekend.
Yeah.
And just says, look, I like she knows she needs the break, which she does. The sister is like valid in trying to get a break and get an escape. You know, how often is it that your rich boyfriend is going to take you on a trip to fucking Pisa, you know, and or you know wherever else, and you know you're not going to get that out.
the
very
fuck
often.
the fuck tour of Italy is what they call it.
It yeah, it is that, isn't it?
The leaning
Yeah.
tower of penis.
Someone's leaning on someone's
Yeah.
tower. If you get the drift. Never understood the leaning tower myself. It's a tower. It leans a little bit. You ever see that photo of the people like all the people like the tourists
Trying to hold it
prop it
up.
up.
Yeah, it's like 15 people in one shot, like all doing the same pose, getting a photo, holding up the leaning tower. It's sad.
You ever gone to Olive Garden and ordered the tour of Italy appetizer platter for $15? It's like the fuck tour of Italy. That's what they went on.
Are you saying they were at Olive Garden the whole time?
Maybe.
Wow.
Well, no, I'm just saying that it's the same principle, except one is inherently more sexual.
The Olive Garden one.
Yes.
Yeah.
The appetizer platter is more sexual than fucking
die
across Italy.
for.
Yeah.
What is on that? What the fuck is a tour of appetite? We digress.
I
We
don't know, I
digress.
haven't been to an Olive Garden in like 6 years, but it's like mozzarella sticks. I think like fried raviolis.
This is dumb.
Yeah,
I asked.
Olive Garden. What a good show.
This
we have
episode
here.
is sponsored by the fuck tour of Italy. There you go. Let's get it out now. The fuck tour of Italy. It's got some fried raviolis, the leaning tower, and abandon your mentally deficient a sibling in a house.
Yeah.
There you go.
One thing that I really love about the use of the rabbit and a lot of other elements is this movie has a heavy use of metaphor in showing the kind of degradation of Carol's psyche. You know, we see her look out the window early in the film and watch the nuns play handball or something way out there.
Does that theme mean anything, or is it a nun starter.
Oh no.
I
mean, it does mean something. It's like the loss of innocence. She doesn't see them later.
Oh, it's true. And she is kind of living like a nun.
And also,
You know,
like,
There's a purity to her.
And a lack of men.
and also, like, they ring the bell at the nunnery, and they do it in the middle of the night, and when the bell rings in the middle of the night is, like, when she has,
The visitation from the Three Ghosts of Christmas.
well...
Oh God, the three rapists of Christmas.
No!
It's just one rapist, but it's probably a ghost.
Don't ruin a
The
Christmas Carol!
rapist
Don't do
of
that!
Past,
I
present,
regret
and
everything!
future.
I regret everything! No!
You did it.
Not my Christmas
You
Carol!
did
I'm
it.
sorry!
You're
I
the one
undo
who
it!
did this.
I undo it! Please!
Did you notice
I repent!
that
I'll be good.
the nightmare rapist was the guy that she passes on the street at the beginning of the film?
I didn't
Whoa,
know
Like that
No.
older guy that's sitting on the street.
Oh, interesting. No, I didn't notice that. I was going to ask if he was the guy from their family photo that we keep seeing. And I don't know if that's the case.
Well, okay, now I guess we are. Yeah.
Yeah, we're
right,
far
yeah.
enough in.
Yeah.
We can talk about...
It might not hurt also just put it private, because like a lot of the things we've already discussed with this film, like I really enjoyed finding out as we went. Like, I don't know if you just want to like tack this at the beginning somewhere or whatever, like while editing, because like it is really good for that. Like not knowing.
This movie came out in 1965.
When it came out doesn't matter. There's a lot of movies out there,
I'm not
but
worried about
like the
spoilers.
date doesn't affect spoilers. But anyway, I'll subscribe to that. Point is, with the family photo, I thought it was the dad.
That's what I was wondering, but I couldn't tell for sure.
When we get that zoom in on the family photo and it's in shadow, I was expecting like a person to move to the side or the curtains to blow a little bit, and for us to see that the other man, the shadow man, is her father, like in the family photo or something. Like I was expecting that, like, and for it to be like the source of her trauma. And I will say, I think it is better that didn't happen.
Yeah.
I think it is much more effective that is not the case. And that what's cool about the man on the street is it doesn't necessarily rule that out either, because she could just be seeing that everywhere.
Yeah, it's
like
just
it's
some
projections.
Yeah.
This already is not a reliable narrator, so it still applies. But yeah, no, as the camera's zooming in, I definitely heard like the ba da 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 da, like Shining music. Like it's very similar to the shot.
Yeah,
of
it is.
It zooms in onto her face as a child and goes into her eye.
Mm-hmm.
And the film starts with the shot of her as an adult on her eye.
Yes.
So it has come full circle.
I'm doing a big circular motion with my hands.
the shape of an eye.
Yeah, and I think the use of that picture is honestly kind of simple in the film, in that like it's just kind of supposed to show that Carol's been like this for a long time.
Yeah.
You know?
She's the only one not like with the rest of the family in the picture.
Yeah.
Like everyone else, like the parents and her sister are like in the foreground and they're all smiling and looking at the camera, and she's back behind them looking off into the distance.
The like
yeah.
disturbed Thousand Island. Oh no!
Yo, it's in the Thousand Island stare again! Oh my god!
With the disturbed 1,000-yard stare.
The disturbed Thousand Island stare. Very good.
Cumtown has forever
I know.
ruined the term 1,000-yard stare.
Oh, is that what that
Yeah.
slip comes
It'll-
from?
Yeah,
it's a good bet. It's a good
It
bet.
was a Freudian slip that Stav did in one episode where he was trying to say 1,000-yard stairs. 1,000 Island stairs.
It's really funny.
It's good.
I haven't seen too much or heard too much of that show. That's pretty
It's
good.
great.
Yeah. How about it? The
But yeah,
1,000
they use. But God damn it! But yeah, they use metaphor a lot in this movie. Whether it's the nuns, or the rabbit, or you have the potatoes that sprout.
Yes.
Great way to show passage of time really subtly. But most importantly, the cracks in the wall.
Ooh, yeah, love that.
The cracks work really well in that kind of it shows the degradation of her psyche in a very physical sense. And I love...
They're very abrupt
Yeah.
It's not even like that they are sort of expanding over time. It's like at crucial moments, like a fracture will just like appear in the wall. Something will break, and it's like a large sort of step down for her, her psyche.
I'll say the first one's the coolest, because the first one, you were not expecting it, or else I certainly fucking wasn't.
Yeah.
And it's like the corner, and the whole wall just like pulls up, and there's meat in there.
Yeah, all
There's
the cracks
meat
are
in
like
them cracks.
fleshy on the inside.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
That kind of surreal stuff
Whoa.
is amazing. Like, one of my few complaints in this movie is that I wish there was more of that.
Right, because the
shit.
first one shows it in full, and it's so cool and horrifying, and it kind of peaks.
And,
Like,
those
how are you going to get, like, how are you
Those are
going
all
to...
the best moments in the movie for me too, like the walls closing in with the hands reaching
so
out.
good, yeah.
And like the one point where she like puts her hand on the wall and it like creates an imprint
Oh,
of her
it's so
hand like
textural.
it's
Yeah.
flesh.
It's so gross.
It's obviously just like clay or something, but like, yeah, that stuff is fantastic, and I want more of that in this movie. I want more of it, and I want it sooner, if I'm being frank.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I love about the film's approach to a lot of that stuff is a lot of that, the cracks or turning the door with the mirror and the dude appearing behind her, they work very much as jump scares, early forms of jump scares, but they don't overstay their welcome.
Right.
You know, they hit that jump and they just move on.
I think you're right at the beginning. Like, early on, they're subtle enough, but I almost wish by the end that like the whole apartment was just like a fleshy eldritch nightmare, you know, like
I didn't want a lot more. I didn't need the whole house to become meat, but like if there was
meat
just
house,
a little
meat house, meat house, meat house.
I mean, that would have been amazing. And Silent Hill certainly has a lot to thank for this movie, both the originals and also like PT as well. Like the player trailer for Silent Hills, the game that never came out by Hideo Kojima. There's like 1-to-1 influence at times.
Yeah,
It's
I
amazing.
mean, this movie in a lot of ways really like created the lexicon for like somebody losing their mind in a house or like a spooky house.
Yeah, it really did build that language,
yeah,
didn't it?
In many ways. Like, there are so many films and video games and everything that are just like you can trace the line, even if it's not directly influenced by Repulsion, you can trace the line to how they got there, you know?
But in some cases, you can never come back. They really crossed the lexicon on that one. See, what I did there is I took two different turns
Yep.
of phrase. Yeah, okay, you get it. So,
I got it.
yeah. But no, I do love
You
the
could
meat.
say that it creates a rubricon.
Whoa! Oh shit! Nice. There was such a series of events to get to that. It was a real
fuck.
rubric Goldberg.
A rubrics cube.
Oh, okay. That's good.
All right, before we lose all of our listeners.
Yeah, this has gone on long enough.
I think you make a fair point about the surrealism. I don't mind that it's kind of subdued even to the end.
Sure.
Because it's a tool. It's not the builder.
It's fine. It's
dumb
fine
metaphor,
without.
but you know what I mean.
It's fine without, but it doesn't mean I wouldn't like more of it.
Sure.
You know.
I think
We all
I
want a
think
meat house. I understand. It's fair.
The
But
nightmares, for example. I love how the sound is cut out
yeah.
of all of them, and it's just like
the ticking
sound
of the clock,
Yeah.
or the ringing of the bell across the street.
yeah, and it
Yeah.
makes them feel so much more horrifying and visceral.
I actually noticed that for a lot of the movie, not the entire thing, but for a lot of the movie, the score only happens outside of the apartment. By the end, it kind of starts to bleed in, but for a lot of the early stuff, it's like there's no score in the apartment. It's just ambience and silence. And then when she goes out into the streets, jazzy and drums and, you know, saxophone and trumpet and shit. And then goes back to the house. It's just fucking quiet. And by the end, there's some score in the house. But I like that. It makes the
outside world is coming in.
Yes, exactly. The noise and the action of without is coming within.
Yeah, and the score is so frenetic that like the main theme is and it sounds almost like machine gun fire of someone just hitting a drum really fast and playing the same note over and over again, and it just really sets you off kilter, and it works especially well when that comes into the apartment because it adds such an intensity to the scenes. Yeah, I think it especially plays in the apartment during the kill scenes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. When somebody from outside has come in, like the landlord or Colin. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I don't know if I immediately drew that connection.
What do you think about Carol's ending? Her fate at the end?
Hot bummer? She's still alive.
Yeah, but she's...
So maybe she can get the help she needs.
Could be.
Because here's the thing. Both those men in the apartment. The door's been broken down.
Yeah, but also...
But also considering the time.
Yeah, also the 60s.
Yeah. Like, it's not the Victorian era, but it's not great. Like,
and Carol doesn't seem like one that would be able to explain what happened particularly well.
Or afford to explain what happened.
Yeah.
That's the other part.
And I think that, like,
bummer.
at that point, like, the sister literally comes home and finds her under the bed, just, like, lying there, basically catatonic. Like, I
the most catatonic she's been, and she's been catatonic from the beginning.
Yeah, I don't get the feeling by the end of the movie that, like, there's really a way back from this for Carol. Like, she'll probably be committed to a mental institution for the rest of her life, because, like, I think that her psyche has broken by the end. Like, she just crawls under the bed and just lays there, death-like. Pretty bleak. Not a happy ending.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's much hope for her. I do like that it is not expressly said though.
Yeah.
Still, because like there is a sliver. I still think, and I remain hopeful for the character as well. You know,
but she did kill the landlord, so that means her sister doesn't have to pay rent.
That's how it works.
That is the rule.
When you kill the landlord, you become the landlord.
Yeah, if you kill the landlord,
Them's
that's your house now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
legally binding.
Right, exactly.
You have to take care of it. It's your responsibility.
Man, and that's kind of the sad thing too, is that, like, before her sister went off, she left the rent money, like, on the table. Like, Carol could have avoided the landlord's intrusion if she had just gone and dropped off the rent.
Well, but see, yeah, that's the thing, is like the sister, like, prepared Carol in the way you would prepare someone who is, like, stable and good.
Yeah.
You know, but she's not.
Right.
So,
right, yeah.
You know, like, that's not good enough. Like,
I'm not victim blaming by any means, but it like, that is what prompts the landlord to come into the apartment, is he's after the rent because the rent's late, you know. So it's like it's something that could have been avoided, you know. It just
it's like, yeah, you can't just tell like a 4-year-old there's dinner in the fridge and then leave.
Make yourself some beans, kid.
Yep.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
Bean dad over here.
Yeah. Bean Dad 2.0.
Yeah.
I don't even have any kids. Yeah. Doesn't mean I can't be Bean Dad.
We're all Bean Dad inside.
It's an interesting life. Oh. All right. So, anywho, with the landlord killing him, the sister leaving, she leaves the money. She does everything that she could do, that you would do for...
But also, like, why doesn't the sister just drop the money off on the way out? Like, why does she leave it for Carol to do? You know, it's like, hey, just go. You're on your way out of town. Just go drop off the money on the way, so your sister doesn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, maybe the landlord doesn't live nearby, and he comes by to collect occasionally or something. You know, like there's, you know, who knows what their customs are? These strange British people. We don't know.
Fucking freaks.
Yeah.
I will say the landlord's death scene, it feels particularly gruesome. Like, you get that first cut where it's like a deep cut, so you don't get blood right away.
Yeah.
It sort of seeps out, but as she continues to cut, it gets really bloody really fast.
Yeah, she cuts him a lot. I almost wish we would have seen more of it. I wanted buckets of blood, but once again, it's fine without it.
No, that's not the point of the movie.
I know it's not the point of the movie. It is. I do think it's like when she's got the straight razor behind her back, it's like you expect her to just do like one slash and like get him across the throat or something. But it really is, like I said earlier, like death by 1,000 cuts. She just cuts him up a bunch, just a bunch of times.
Oh, yeah.
And then flips the couch over so she doesn't have to look at him.
Yeah, I thought of maybe a better way of phrasing it. Like, having like buckets of blood everywhere, like it would have worked. Or like having the house become a meat house by the end. Like it could have worked, but it would have almost distracted like from her presence, because like they're tools to show us like her devolving psyche. It's not like Jacob's Ladder, like it's not like a venture into the mind. It's an exploration of it. And so if we were to go that route, it would feel almost like building a birdhouse with like a pneumatic nail gun. Like you're overdoing it. Like a regular hammer is fine. It's a birdhouse,
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's not fun to use a nail gun.
It is, and there are a lot of movies out there that try to build a birdhouse with a nail gun, and they're great for sure. But
yeah, it's not necessary, but that doesn't mean it's not fun.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. You didn't want it personally. Like I respect it. All right. Well, any other points?
No, I think we're good to rate.
All right, Ben. Yeah, why don't you start since this was your pick?
Yeah, well, I said it at the top of the show, but I'll say it again. This is one of my all-time favorite horror movies. I think one of the scariest forms of horror is horror of the mind and horror of madness, because it is grounded very much in reality and is very much of this earth and very relatable for too many people. Yeah. This film is incredibly disturbing. I think it's one of the all-time greats of building tension and ramping up surreal horror, especially in an era where there was really not much of that happening before this. Catherine Deneuve has always been one of my all-time film crushes, and she is particularly horrifying in this. It's a case where you have a crazed killer, but, this is one of the first instances where it's a woman that's the killer. And not only that, it's a woman who is very empathetic and relatable, and
she kills in self-defense.
Yeah,
and you're a man, and you can relate.
Yeah.
Wow. Incredible.
It makes it all the more disturbing that, she is empathetic, though, like compared to like Norman Bates, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think this is a perfect film. This is an easy 5 out of 5 for me.
What about you, Cleveland?
So it's real close. I do have some stipulations, considering I know it is important to separate art from artist, but there are times where, as a person made of meat, it can be a little hard to do that. I think, like, on paper it is. I think it's really important to do that. But at a certain point, like, it's just... I can't watch The Cosby Show anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I can't sit down and do that. And nor should I be expected to.
When the artist's shitty politics or shitty actions seep into the art, it becomes a little bit harder to separate.
And like, totally fine if you do. Like, I don't fault anyone for it. Like if you can sit down and watch The Cosby Show and still get joy out of it, I'm not going to fault you for it. Weird, but I'm not going to fault you for it. But like, personally, I can't sit down and do that. With this movie, I did have a bit of that problem, considering, like, the director. The subject matter around our heroine, that shows how effective this movie is. I think largely I refer to it as a heroine. But, around our protagonist, antagonist, whatever, around this character, it's really hard. I don't know if I can watch this one again. It was also extremely difficult for me to watch by design. As per usual, very standard fare. Thanks, I hate it. Much like Raw, much like many of these other films we watch on this podcast, where I don't see myself watching this film again for a very long time. Not really something to sit down on a Friday night and just be like, hey, let's watch Repulsion. It sounds great, but
depends on who you are.
Yeah, that's fair. So it's going to be a 4.5 from me, but it is a very, 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 very strong 4.5. Yeah, I do still highly recommend this movie. Aside from those things, and it is fascinating. It is a fascinating movie.
Yeah, I agree with you largely. It's a great film. There definitely are some very unpleasant associations that creep in, considering the artist in this case, a sexual predator making a movie about sexual violence does hit a little bit too close to home, I think. That being said, it's a very effective and well done movie. Honestly, not my favorite Polanski, nor even my favorite of the Apartment trilogy. I'm more of a Rosemary's Baby type.
Still haven't seen it.
It's fantastic. But, you know, there is definitely a lot to like here. There's a very strong lead performance. The style of the movie is great. The cinematography is beautiful. The black and white. The score is great. Honestly, like my problems with it largely come from like personal preference of just like wanting more from it at times, which is less the movie's fault and more mine. But even so, it affects my rating a bit. I'm going to give it a strong 4 out of 5. So between the three of us, that will give Repulsion an average of 4.5 out of 5. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it, if you can stomach it, and if you're the type of person to be able to watch a Roman Polanski movie in 2021. And if you're not, I respect that.
Yes, I wouldn't fault that.
Forget it, Jake. It's
Yeah.
Chinatown.
Ooh, yeah, no kidding.
Yikes.
Well, next week we begin the first of several new film episodes that we have coming up. We're going to be talking about a long anticipated film for us. It's time for Army of the Dead, the new Zack Snyder zombie flick. We have talked about this film a lot already, and some of the fun stories that have come out of the production of the movie. Weirdly, I must say, having seen the trailers, I'm surprisingly kind of excited for this one.
I've been avoiding it.
I think this has potential to be Zack Snyder's best film. Granted, that is an immensely low bar.
the lowest of bars.
Yeah, even the lowest of bars. So that is, I think by the time this episode goes up, Army of the Dead will already be out on Netflix.
It's out today.
As we were recording, yes, you're right. So check out the movie and then come listen to our thoughts on it next week. Cleveland, I know you already did one sponsor earlier in the
Italian
show,
fuck tour, yeah.
but it turns out that we actually...
They do it better in Italy or whatever the expression is.
It turns out we actually have another sponsor, courtesy of the sponsor shelf.
Oh shit, we're doing that now!
So
We're doing a new thing that I guess we can't say what it is because it ruins the bit.
You're taking it off the sponsorship.
Yeah, you're
am.
taking it off the sponsor shelf. Who's sponsored by this week?
This is amazing. I love this new edition. This new weird branchy arm that the sponsor shelf has grown. I pull this off the shelf. Thank you for handing me this off the shelf, Matisse.
You're welcome.
And the paper says
This episode is brought to you by...
Spaghetti Tuesday. You looking for spaghetti on a Tuesday? You've got it, folks, but only on Tuesdays. Come on down to Spaghetti Tuesday. It's like Ruby Tuesday, but spaghettier. There you are, sir.
All right. Well, thank you as always for listening. If you like the show, hit those 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a nice review, just a couple of words. We really appreciate it. You can follow us on Twitter at PodPeoplePod and at letterboxd.com/PodPeoplePod, where you'll find a list of all the films we've talked about on the show with our average ratings and links to those episodes. And we have some very exciting news. We have launched a Patreon.
We did it.
We did it. As of the moment, we are not gating any of our content behind a paywall. So if...
Have no fear, listeners.
Have no fear, you'll still get every episode if you don't subscribe to the Patreon. But we thought it would be nice for folks who might like to support the boys. You can
Support the boys.
visit patreon.com/podpeoplepod and become a monthly contributor. I think we've got 3 tiers right now that have some different rewards. We've got a $3 tier for folks who just want to support the show. We've got a $5 tier. If you subscribe to that one, you will get every episode 2 days early. They will go up on a Tuesday instead of a Thursday for you.
A Spaghetti Tuesday.
And Spaghetti Tuesday, exactly. And we have a $10 tier, which is the honorary Pod Boy tier. If you become a $10 donor, not only will you get the episodes 2 days early, but you'll also get a special shout out on the show, and you will be able to suggest movies for us to review. We will be putting together a patrons picks pool, which we will
The Triple P.
the Triple P,
The Pontypool.
which we will start to cycle into our own picks. So every week, how we each one of us gets to pick a movie. Once we have some patron picks, we will start pulling from that as well. So that link again is patreon.com/podpeoplepod if you want to support the show. And if you can't afford it and the rest, no worries. Still getting all the content.
We're
for
still
free.
here.
So, but if you do, thank you so much. We love you.
Honestly, though, please, yeah.
Yes. So that is that. You can follow me on Twitter at SomeSpookySnake.
I'm on Twitter at Mr. Sheets.
And I'm occasionally shooting for Light Arc Studios. We put out progress on It Stares Back. Find it on Steam. Search It Stares Back. You know the drill. You can also find my work on ArtStation if you search Cleveland Mosier. And sometimes I do art for you if you want it.
For me?
Maybe. I don't know. You paying?
Yeah.
That's how commissions
maybe.
work.
That's true.
Yeah.
Pay us. Or pay Cleveland for art. All right. Well, thank you for listening. Next week, it's the Army of the Dead. We will see you then. Until next time, try not to get too handsy, if you know what I mean.
Bells will ring, ting-a-ling-ling, ting-a-ling-ling, as a bell ring, more. You're in love when you know that you feel some more to me, but you see, back in old Napoli, that's amore.